If you have ever typed the words "how to become a millionaire at a young age" into a search bar, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because almost everything that comes back from that search is answering the wrong question. The videos promise a shortcut, a business that prints money, a coin that goes to the moon, a skill you can learn in a weekend that pays six figures by Friday. And every once in a while, for a tiny handful of people, one of those things actually works. But here is the part nobody puts in the thumbnail. When researchers actually study real millionaires, the picture looks nothing like the highlight reel. Fidelity found that 88% of millionaires are self-made. They did not inherit it. In the largest study of its kind, only 21% of millionaires received any inheritance at all, and only 3% inherited $1 million or more. So the fantasy of a rich uncle handing you the keys, that is not how it happens for almost anyone. But then it gets more interesting. The same research shows the average millionaire took 28 years of steady saving and investing to get there. The average person with a seven-figure retirement account is 59 years old. 28 years. That is not a weekend. That is not a hustle. That is a slow, quiet machine running in the background of an ordinary life. So here is the reframe I want to give you, and it changes everything about the question you started with. Becoming a millionaire young is almost never about earning a fortune while you are young. It is about starting the clock while you are young. The number in your bank account at 25 matters far less than the number of years your money gets to grow. Youth is not the thing that makes you rich. Youth is the runway. And most people burn the runway before they ever take off. Let me show you the machine that is actually doing the work. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The machine is compound growth. It sounds boring. It is the most powerful financial force on the planet. Compound growth means your money earns a return, and the next year that return earns its own return, and the year after that, the returns on the return start earning returns. It starts almost invisibly slow. And then, if you leave it alone long enough, it goes vertical. The best proof of this is the most famous investor alive. Warren Buffett is worth over $100 billion, but here is the fact that should stop you in your tracks. Roughly 99% of his wealth was built after his 50th birthday. He was already a serious investor for decades before that. The fortune did not come from a young genius getting rich fast. It came from an old snowball that had been rolling for a very, very long time. Buffett said it himself. The trick is to have a very long hill, which means starting very young or living to be very old. You control one of those two things. So let us actually run the numbers on the question you searched for. What would it really take to have $1 million by 30? If you are 22 and you want $1 million in the bank by 30, that is 8 years. To get there purely by saving and investing at a realistic long-term market return, you would need to put away somewhere around $6,000 to $7,000 every single month. For 8 straight years, that is over $80,000 a year, saved, not earned. For almost anyone, that is not a savings plan. That is a fantasy. And that is exactly why the internet does not sell you the savings plan. It sells you the lottery ticket, because the honest math does not make a good thumbnail. But watch what happens when we stop demanding the million by 30, and instead just protect the runway. Here is the same person, 25 years old, investing $500 a month, not a fortune, less than many people spend on a car payment. If they invest that $500 a month into a simple, broad stock market index fund earning the market's long-run average of about 10%, and they simply do not stop, by the time they are 65, they have around $3.1 million. From $500 a month. That is the machine. Now here is the line that I need you to really feel because it is the whole video. Take that exact same person, same 500 a month, same market, but they wait just 10 years and start at 35 instead of 25. Same effort, same monthly amount. They end with about 1.1 million. Waiting 10 years did not cost them a little. It cost them $2 million. $2 million for a 10-year delay. That is the price of the runway you burn. Nothing about the plan changed, except when the clock started. That is what youth actually is. It is not a magic income. It is the single most valuable, completely non-renewable asset you will ever hold. And nobody tells you that at 22 because at 22 it feels like you have all the time in the world. You do. That is precisely the point. Spend it. Let me push this further. Because I do not want you to think this only works for people who can spare $500 a month. Say all you can manage is $200 a month. The price of a few dinners out. Invest that same 10% long-run average and leave it completely alone. In 10 years, it is about 40,000, not life-changing. This is where most people quit because the early years look like nothing is happening, but keep going. At 20 years, it is around 150,000. At 30 years, about 450,000. And at 40 years, that $200 a month has quietly become over $1.2 million. Same $200. The only variable that changed was time on the hill. Do you see what the early years were actually doing? They were not failing. They were loading the spring. The boring decade where nothing seems to happen is the decade that makes the last decade explode. Almost everyone quits during the loading, and almost nobody is there for the explosion. Let me put the boring machine head-to-head against the exciting thing, because this is the choice most young people are actually making without realizing it. Picture two people, both 25. The first one goes looking for the shortcut. Over the next 15 years, they try 3 things that are supposed to make them rich fast. A side business, a hot stock tip, a crypto play. Each one takes real money and real time, and each one eventually goes to zero, which is what usually happens. By 40, they have almost nothing to show for it except a stack of stories. The second person does the boring thing. $500 a month into a plain index fund, starting at 25, and they never touch it. By 40, without a single exciting moment, without one good story to tell at a party, they already have around $200,000 quietly working for them, and it is now compounding on itself faster than they could ever add to it by hand. The exciting path felt like progress the whole time. The boring path was the only one that was actually moving. Now let me hand you the single biggest cheat code in this entire game, and it is one almost nobody uses on purpose. The employer match. If your job offers a 401k with a match, that is your employer offering to hand you free money, usually somewhere around 3 to 5% of your salary, just for saving your own. Say you earn $50,000 and your employer matches 5%. That is $2,500 a year that appears out of thin air, on top of whatever you put in, the moment you contribute. There is no investment on earth that reliably doubles your money the instant you make it, except this one, and more than a quarter of people who could take it simply do not. Now feed that free money into the same 40-year machine we have been talking about, and that one habit alone, just capturing the full match, can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you retire. You did not earn it by being smart. You earned it by filling out one form in your first week at a job and never turning it off. And there is one more lever that quietly does more than any of them, which is that you do not have to keep saving the same small amount forever. When you are 25, $200 a month might be all you can do, and that is completely fine because At that age, time is doing most of the work anyway. But every time you get a raise, if you send even half of it straight into the machine before you ever get used to spending it, your contributions climb right alongside your income while your lifestyle barely notices. The person who starts at $200 a month at 25 and slowly works their way up to $1,000 a month by their late 30s does not end up with $1 million. They end up with several, not because they earn dramatically more than their neighbor, but because they let the raises feed the machine instead of the lifestyle. So here is a question for you, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. If you could go back and tell your younger self to start one single financial habit 5 years earlier, what would it be? Drop it below. Somebody reading this needs to hear it before they lose their own 5 years. Now, none of this works if the money is sitting in a regular savings account earning almost nothing. So let me be concrete about where the machine actually runs. For most people, it is not exotic. 80% of millionaires built their wealth inside a boring workplace retirement account, a 401k, usually with an employer match, which is free money most people leave on the table. After that, a simple individual retirement account and a low-cost index fund that just owns the whole market instead of trying to pick winners. That is it. That is the entire toolkit behind most seven-figure ordinary people. No secret, no edge, no timing the market, just money in early and hands off for decades. And this is the part where I want to zoom out, because the lesson here is so much bigger than $1 million. The wealthy do not get rich by being smarter about which stock to pick. They get rich by being more patient about time. They let the boring machine run while everyone else is chasing the exciting thing that blows up and disappears. The person who quietly invests a modest amount at 25 and never touches it will almost always end up wealthier than the person who tries to get rich fast at 35, 40, and 45 and keeps starting over. Slow, early, and boring beats fast, late, and clever, nearly every single time. So let me bring this all the way back to the words you searched. How to become a millionaire at a young age. The honest answer is that the young age was never really about the finish line. Getting rich by 30 is, for almost everyone, a fantasy that sells videos. But getting rich because of what you did in your 20s, that is not a fantasy. That is just math. The millionaire is not the 25-year-old with $1 million. The millionaire is the 25-year-old who started the clock, protected the runway, and let a small, steady, unglamorous machine run for 40 years, while everyone else waited for the shortcut that never came. The $1 million was never really the dream. Freedom was the dream. Options were the dream. Waking up one day and realizing you never have to be afraid of a bill again, that was the dream. And that dream has a price tag a lot closer to $200 a month, started young, than to some overnight fortune you have been told you need. The only thing standing between most young people and real wealth was the belief that they had to get rich fast to get rich at all. You never did, and now you know the math. If this changed how you think about one expensive thing you've been telling yourself you can't have, there are a lot more of these, the real math behind the life you actually want. Subscribe, and let's keep decoding it together.